are these guys rich, high-end Russians who are trying to overthrow him, or trying to tell him you've got to capitulate in Ukraine? Or why is this happening? I only have about a minute.
Actually, I wish they were trying to tell him to get out of Ukraine. I think it's something simpler. Russia's elite has a bunch of different clans. You have the KGB successors, you have rich businessmen, you have corrupt people of other kinds. And Putin was able to keep them separated and to be kind of the intermediary. He's now losing control and losing power, and the rats are devouring each other.
It's just so bizarre to see all that. Honestly, there's just a wealth of knowledge for Tom Clancy here if he wants it. I hope we're all going to be here tomorrow, Jonathan, so we can talk about this again. But I hope you're also right that he's just saber rattling at this point and not, moving the big giant missiles to, towards New York. Thanks for doing this.
Next time I'll teach you protest words in Russian.
До свидания. Спасибо большое. How's that?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I like to pretend. Well, now you got me. I have no idea what you're talking. Jonathan, thank you.
Go to war.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Good luck. Okay, just ahead, for a while there, somebody might have talked about $1.3 billion lottery ticket in Illinois. But with just days until this crucial deadline, a winner has emerged. So exactly what can they buy with their instant windfall? We have the shopping list of billionaires straight ahead.
It's all-in-one. You've got unbeatable relief from your worst cold and flu symptoms. So when you need to show your cold who's boss, grab Mucinex All-in-One and get back to your rhythm. Feel the power. Beat the symptoms fast.
So, how many vaccines have you given to people?
Maybe about 1,000. Walgreens, millions.
I cannot miss her continue.
With your booster, I think you'll be good for every ritual.
Got a shot so my sister won't get sick.
Way to go, big bro. So while we're here, can you try as well? Let's do it.
When you need to talk vaccinations, our pharmacists are here.
Step up, prep up to help keep you free from the risk of HIV.
Discovery for PrEP, the smallest PrEP pill available, is a once-daily prescription medicine that helps lower the chances of getting HIV through sex. It's not for everyone. Discovery for PrEP has not been studied in people assigned female at birth. Talk to your doctor to find out if it's right for you.
Descovy is another way to PrEP. Descovy does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections, so it's important to use safer sex practices and get tested regularly. You must be HIV negative to take Descovy for PrEP, so you need to get tested for HIV immediately before and at least every 3 months while taking it. If you think you were exposed to HIV or have flu-like symptoms, tell your doctor right away. They may check to confirm you are still HIV negative. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Where life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. The most common side effect was diarrhea. Tell your doctor about all the medicines or supplements you take or kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Descovy without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor if Descovy for PrEP is right for you. Get help paying for Descovy for PrEP. Learn more at Descovy.com.
Goodbye budget stress, hello fall style. Get to Kohl's and take 15% off already great deals on women's style strips and elements for life, men's clothing from Apartment 9, and the latest boots. Or save more with the Kohl's card. More style, more saving. Kohl's.
Selling a home is expensive and stressful, so we created our smart seller system to sell your home for top dollar and save you thousands in commissions.
I was amazed at the fact that my house sold in one day. Ideal agents saved me in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 in commission. The process was as easy as it gets. They are the #1 way to sell your house.
Our service is free, available nationwide, and there's zero obligation. Call us today or visit idealagent.com.
Attention Marines and family members who spend time at Camp Lejeune.
If you spent time on base at Camp Lejeune prior to 1988 and developed any of these cancers or suffered any of these injuries, you may be eligible for significant financial compensation. Call Camp Lejeune victims to discuss your case now.
Leaking underground tanks contaminated the drinking water with benzene and other highly carcinogenic chemicals, up to 280 times acceptable levels in some instances.
There have been numerous reported cases of exposed personnel developing cancer and other serious health conditions. It is critical to take action and call Camp Lejeune victims now.
If you or someone you know spent time at Camp Lejeune before 1988 and you developed any of these cancers or injuries, call to determine your eligibility for financial compensation now. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
Call 800-648-0162. That's 800-648-0162.
Hate and discrimination against Asian Americans are on the rise. All report hate incidents and crimes. Learn how to de-escalate or intervene safely as a bystander. Get involved in movements to promote racial and social justice. If you are being harassed, we have resources to help. This message brought to you by these organizations.
Did you get a call or message that mentioned Social Security that made you feel threatened or scared? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, press you for personal information, or demand instant payment. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mail and cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Don't fall for it. Hang up, ignore them. Report this criminal activity to oig.ssa.gov.
So they didn't throw it out after all. Because for a while there, it looked like a $1.34 billion lottery ticket might be rotting in a landfill somewhere near Chicago, but not anymore. The rightful owner of that ticket came forward today, and as it turns out, he or she bought that ticket with somebody else. And the two of them have decided to stay anonymous, as they're allowed to do. But you can bet your bottom dollar they're planning to do some spending. So here's a list of what they could buy with what they're getting. A lump sum payout is about $780 million on that jackpot. And for that, they could pick up 13 of the most expensive private islands in the Bahamas at $60 million each. They could also buy Air Force One if they wanted, $660 million, but sadly it is not for sale. No matter. The most expensive private jet owned by an individual on the planet goes for $600 million. Maybe houses close to home in Illinois is one of their bags, so they could buy almost 3,000 of those houses at about $269,000 each. Sleep in a different one every night for almost a year. No, a couple more, 10 years. And you know what? Then they could also sail into the sunset if they wanted to on one of their two mega yachts that they bought for 328 feet long. They're each worth $275 million, and still they'd have another $230 million left over for gas and groceries and booze and maybe a castle. If they are smart, they will invest it. They will live off its interest, which every year on 780 milposts should generate about $78 million. That also means by not paying the prize in the last 8 weeks, they lost out on about $13 million in interest, which I guess you could qualify as rich people problems. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll be back here tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Good evening, I believe that are on the program tonight. The numbers at the border aren't the story. The people who don't get counted, who slip off into the night, are the people who should scare us the most. We'll show you how easy it really is.
The alcohol detection system will measure the alcohol in a driver's blood in less than a second.
The feds want an alcohol detector in your car to prevent drunk driving. No, we are not kidding. How is that possibly legal? Will Smith's Oscar slap might cost Apple a full $100 million. Why does Apple care about the Oscars when nobody watches? But first, on point tonight, an honest politician. We don't get to celebrate that very often, so mark the day, September 21st, 2022. New York Attorney General Anita James fulfilled her longtime campaign promise of taking down President Trump.
Lady, you have money that you do not have. Does that amount to $2 a day?
her real credit. Not only did she fulfill her campaign promise, she gave up running for governor of New York to do it. After a 3-year investigation, she brought civil, not criminal charges, that's curious, against former President Trump, Don Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka, alleging a massive fraud. She wants to bar the Trump from serving as executive of a company operating in New York. As evidence, 280+ pages, she points to a pattern of behavior between 2011 and 2015, where Trump and his employees wildly overvalued their assets on disclosure forms and then would change their valuation methods as it suited them. For example, Trump's own triplex apartment in New York's Trump Tower, it was valued to be 30,000 square feet when it was actually 11,000. Meaning in 2015, the apartment was valued at $327 million, $30,000 a square foot. At the time, only one apartment in New York City had ever sold for anything close to that high a price, $100 million. And in the decades-old Trump Tower, the record sale was only $16.5 million. There are a lot of examples of Mr. Trump doing this, but James said Trump valued his club in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, as a possible real estate development, except he had signed away with development rights a long time ago.
Club generated annual revenues of less than $25 million. It should have been valued at about $75 million. However, Mar-a-Lago is valued as high as $739 million.
And let's be honest, this sounds like Donald Trump. Nobody believes that Trump didn't do these things. It certainly sounds like it. At a different time of life, I knew some of his bankers. They would laugh about his disclosure forms and how blatantly inflated they were. Usual deposition for a 2007 lawsuit, Trump sued New York Times reporter Timothy O'Brien. O'Brien wrote a book, Trump Nation, The Art of Being McDonald, allegedly Trump wasn't nearly as rich as Trump claimed. That might work on an episode of The Apprentice, where President Trump said that his net worth depended on, quote, how he felt at a given time. But it does not work on official tax documents when the Attorney General of New York is out to get you. The last few words are the most important. Out to get you. Our justice system wasn't created to get you. I'm trying to think of the phrase that I've heard, the rule of law. You've heard about it a lot lately too, but it's what makes us different than, say, Russia, where the state rules with an iron fist and officials can go get you, as best described by Robert Berry, long time the most feared man in Russia, and had the secret police under Stalin. He famously said, show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. Berry's quote sounds an awful lot like what he and James during her campaign. There's a lot of folks like that. Once you're being honest and keeping your campaign promises, most politicians aren't honest and don't keep their promises. But nobody's above the law. We keep hearing that. The law is supposed to be equal, not a way to settle political scores when someone is in office. That's what they do in Russia, not in America. At least it's not supposed to happen in America. That's my point tonight. George Willis here, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, News Nation senior contributor. George, it's good to see you. Is that what's happening here? Is a violation of the rule of law?
Well, it's very peculiar, as you point out. Donald Trump is now the subject of this Attorney General of New York, who has used the vast resources of her office to do what he has already confessed to. Here's what I mean. He understood when he started to get into politics, A, the charisma of Greg Rice in the United States, B, the advantage of being considered a financial wizard, and C, the fact that his company was having trouble, he had been through slow bankruptcies, was having trouble getting credit and loans from banks, so he inflated his assets, and he admitted it. In a 2011 interview with CNN, he said the following: my net worth fluctuates and it goes up and down with the markets and with attitudes and with feelings, even my own feelings. That is, when he felt particularly ebullient, he would say I'm worth $6 billion. Now, the problem is that the Attorney General has a point, which is if you use this as a way to get people to lend you money, fraudulent, they fall under false pretenses, you're committing fraud. But you have to ask yourself, what bank would just take them in words for?
Right, and it's yeah, and who is the victim here? In this grand scheme that she alleges, we get to hear that part of it. I'm thinking about this in terms of the danger, right? Gavin Newsom referring Ron DeSantis to the DOJ for kidnapping, and James using her powers to run Donald Trump after campaigning on going to get Donald Trump. I'm thinking also about sort of the accusations against President Trump by his own U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York of putting his hand on the scale of criminal investigation when he was president. None of this is good for the country.
None of it's good for the country, and as you say, it has the aroma of special targeting with political overtones. The fact is, Leland, Mr. Trump had, according to Forbes magazine, a net worth of about $200 million in the early 1980s. If he had left that $200 million in an index fund and spent the next 40 years playing golf, just leaving the money alone, he would probably have a higher net worth than he has now. We don't know what that net worth is because he has carefully refused to release his tax returns for various reasons, all of them suspect. So this is one more chink in the armor, one more put a frame around Mr. Trump's reputation, and it will, I guarantee you, have zero effect on his base.
Yeah, well, you also have to just think of the contrapositive, what happens when all of a sudden you've got a Republican running on investigating Hunter Biden or putting Hunter Biden in jail for his business dealing, just like going after Don Jr. And Ivanka. George, it's good to see you as always. Thank you.
Glad to be with you.
Yes, sir.
Office qualified for service are obesity, addiction, conduct, test scores, medical and behavioral health conditions.
In short, too many Americans are too fat to serve. It's one of many reasons the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines can't recruit enough people. Only 22%, or 17 of 17 to 24-year-olds are qualified to serve. Less than a quarter of Americans can sign up for the military. And there is an irony. Much of America is too fat to serve, but once in the military, they get paid so little, they can't feed their families. We did this story last week, twice as a matter of fact. When the Sergeant Major of the Army told soldiers unable to feed their families to go on food stamps, it's not his fault, he was trying to help the soldiers. It's not surprising so many starting salaries hover in the low $20,000 range. Sergeants with 8 years in easily have a family of 4, making mid-40,000s. Right now, 22,000 plus active duty troops are on food stamps. Many more likely qualify, but military culture often means they don't ask for help. It's sad. Shameful. So imagine you're a soldier stationed far away from family and home, worried about them having enough to eat. Then you hear this from the Commander-in-Chief of the UN today.
And as I pledge to all of you, the United States will donate $1 billion for every $2 billion committed by the rest of the world.
$2.9 billion for international food security. Take 1.6 million active duty soldiers, and you could give them each an $1,800 raise. That would help with both buying more food for their families and recruiting more soldiers. Not since the end of the Cold War have we needed them.
If the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will without question use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin announced no threat to use nuclear weapons, no surprise, it came just before President Biden spoke at the UN, literally just hours before. And his army continues to lose ground and color the maps to show you what's continued to happen here as the Ukrainians have pressed forward now 6 months into this war. The Russians have lost now 10% of the area of the east that they hoped to contain and begin to cut off. Right now, the Russians have called up 300,000 of their reserve troops. The war here is so unpopular that trying to get by a plane ticket out of Russia is now impossible. It shows just how unpopular the war here in Ukraine is and how worried Russians are about going to fight in Ukraine. Here's President Biden today.
This war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state. That should make your blood run cold.
David Asher's here of the Hudson Institute. What is this? Putin's just worried he's not relevant during the UN General Assembly? What is it?
I think it's something more serious. I mean, Putin is losing, and Russian elites are losing Putin as a leader they can trust. Actually, some of them are really, really ultra-right. I think he needs to move far much harder. That's why he's threatening nuclear, a famed release nuclear attack that rests against the United States and Europe. But I also think that Putin is in trouble because Russians don't like losers, and he's a loser right now.
When you say they don't like trouble, you mean and they don't like losing. You're saying that there's a chance of a coup? I'm trying to figure out where you're going.
I think that's not that likely right now, but I think that there's a chance that there's going to be some sort of move over the next coming months against them. If he surrenders as much territory at the rate he's surrendering right now, the only thing he really has going for him is the weather. You know, it starts to get cold and mushy in the ground in mid-October, typically in Ukraine and north, where he's losing the most ground. But you know, I think with the more advanced equipment that they're giving the Ukrainians, they're going to keep fighting. They're not going to stop in the wintertime. So he's in trouble. But let's face it, this is the first time I believe in history that a Soviet or Russian leader or any leader other than the crazy North Koreans has ever threatened the United States and Europe with a potential nuclear attack.
Well, back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, things went back and forth, and the Russians said nuclear missiles to Cuba. You know what I think what he said, though, if the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will without question use all means at our disposal. That's not really threatening a unilateral first strike on Washington.
It's not, I know. The problem is anybody, I worked in gravity and around nuclear doctrine, missiles and weapon systems for years, and anytime someone makes a veiled threat against the United States like this, you have to take it seriously and probably elevate our level of alert. And I've talked to a whole bunch of Russia experts, including Russians who are against Putin, and they certainly feel that this was a different level of rhetoric and threat that they've ever seen a Russian leader historically.
What do we make of that? Is it the escalate to de-escalate the bluff that Putin is famous for of trying to get the world to be scared? And if so, sort of the hand wringing in the West over this, oh my God, Vladimir Putin threatened. I'm wondering if sort of a calm, well, you know, that's what he's going to do. We're going to keep doing what we're going to do. Response wouldn't be better.
I would agree with you, and I also say that, you know, look, Vladimir, don't think that we don't have nuclear weapons and other capabilities, and we do have a lot of other capabilities, which I can't talk about, that American people should know that we haven't spent the last 40 years since the stealth fighters were designed doing nothing with our military capability development. So, you know, we have an awful lot that we can throw at him if he ever decides to make a more credible direct threat. I don't think, though, we should respond. I agree with you. I think we just need to show tangibly that we're going to keep supporting the Ukrainians. I would give them longer range rockets that can get 200 miles into Russian territory. That, I think, even though they use it, the Ukrainians will use them at that level. Having them up there, I think, would also cause Putin to take pause.
Yeah, the flip side of this is what Putin threatened, right? If the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, that speaks directly to those missiles. David, thank you. We appreciate it. Tonight, Dan Abrams Live, one of the President's top national security advisors at Kirby joins Dan Trump at Putin's threat, 9 Central, just after 5 on News Nation. 32 Americans die every day in drunk driving crashes. That's one person every 45 minutes. Far more die in school shootings or mass shootings or any other event. Politicians and certain cable news networks used to demand common sense gun control.
The most significant piece of anti-gun violence legislation in nearly 30 years.
If we can even save one life, and this will save many more, it will be well worth it.
So many of my good friends and colleagues on the Republican side will step forward, looking at the most reasonable pathway to do something.
As we said, a lot more people die from drunk driving crashes, yet you never hear about common sense alcohol reform until now. National Transportation Safety Board wants every new car in America to come with an alcohol detector. 3 years for the policies to be written, 2 years for auto manufacturers to comply. Not only for drivers, but everybody would pass some test before turning on their car. Maybe not blowing the machine as you hear, but maybe a fingerprint test. That's big. But remember, driving is a constitutional right, so maybe it's not that big as taking away guns. How many lives that would save? But zero. I mean zero. Cable news anchors are demanding. Ian Samuels here, former law clerk to Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia and resident on balance scholar. Legal to do this, Ian?
Yeah, I think it's legal, because the device would be implemented in the car. The government presumably would not get access to the data, and after all, the idea would be to stop you from doing something that would constitute a crime. It wouldn't constitute a Fourth Amendment search. It would be something like a safety feature that was implemented in cars during the Obama administration, which is backup cameras, right? Some people don't know that the reason you see those everywhere, every car you rent, etc., has one, is because you have to. Because it's easier to see a little kid behind your car with a backup camera, and it can save the lives of little kids. This is something like that. The agency that's proposing it doesn't actually have the authority to implement it as a rule. They make recommendations to other federal agencies, but they want this. And this agency wants other safety features too. They want to use cars inside the cameras inside the cars to sort of notice drowsiness. They want, I think, what they call intelligent speed limitations, aka cars that basically won't go too much over the speed limit, stuff like that. They have all sorts of ideas for the use of technology to restrict the way that you can drive to stop you from driving in unsafe ways. And obviously that's going to be controversial, but they have lots of ideas like this.
You say it's going to be controversial, but I can't help but think there's this inherent difference between limiting guns, which are explicitly talked about in the Constitution, and while cars didn't exist, there's no Ninth Amendment that talks about thou shalt not restrict my horse and buggy.
That's true that there's not, and I think that the reason it's going to be controversial is not because there's a constitutional issue with it. I don't think that there is, but because the dark truth of the matter is that an awful lot of people drive drunk when they're not supposed to. Now, that's not a good reason not to implement the policy. Actually, it's a good reason to implement the policy.
Yeah. But it's a great look, if you don't drive drunk, what do you care? It's no different than you have to have a key or anything else. It's just when you turn on your car, it doesn't send the information off to anybody. There you go. Real quick, why don't you think these people who are so concerned with gun violence haven't demanded this sooner? It seems like the perfect way to save lives.
Well, the analogy between guns and alcohol is actually a really good one, because the truth of the matter is people always like to say, hey, guns don't kill people, people kill people. But the same thing is true about alcohol. And the reality is that the United States alcohol policy does get a lot of alcohol into the hands of a lot of people, many of whom have chronic alcohol abuse problems through no fault of their own. And there is a lot of room for reform in the way that we regulate and sell alcohol, and that things like this that are commensurate with that in the United States. But the reason they don't want to do it is very simple. Rich people drink wine, right? And the rich constituents of and Nancy Pelosi, I love them, they don't mostly have guns. But rich people like to get drunk, and that means that when they're in control of things, they're going to make sure that if they're getting a little tipsy on a monthly thing, they can drive back to their beach house and no one's going to hassle them. That's the truth.
I appreciate you saying Martin Jr. and not Ian, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, another day, another record number of illegal border crossings. Now we should be more worried about the people who aren't parked or caught. And that's the statistics. The sheriff investigating Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will he charge the governor with a fine for blind violence. You want this right here?
You have to look at stories in terms of what matters to regular people. Get away from the fringes and the special interests. There is no reason to magnify fish spinning. Magnify what matters. Bring to light what is being ignored. You will watch this show and see that the job is done the right way. And don't play the game. We changed it.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're really different.
Different how? We sell high commission investment products, right?
Nope, Fisher avoids them.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Never at Fisher Investments.
Okay, then you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No. We structure our fees so we do better for the clients we render. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
When moderate to severe ulcerative colitis persists, put it in check with Rinvoq, a once-daily pill.
When UC got unpredictable, I got rapid symptom relief with Rinvoq. Check.
When UC held me back, I got lasting steroid-free remission with Rinvoq. Check.
And when UC got the upper hand,
Rinvoq helped physically repair colon lining. Check. Rapid symptom relief, lasting steroid-free remission, and a chance to physically repair the colon lining. Check, check, and check.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers, including lymphoma and skin cancer, death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occur. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Put UC in check and keep it there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq and learn how AbbVie could help you save.
With thyroid eye disease, I was always wearing sunglasses to hide my bulging eyes. I wore them just about everywhere. But then, my doctor recommended Tepezza, a prescription medicine for thyroid eye disease, and I didn't have to hide so much. In a clinical study, more than 8 out of 10 patients taking Tepezza had less eye bulging, and nearly 7 out of 10 saw improvements in double vision. Tepezza is an infused medicine. Patients taking Tepezza may experience infusion reactions. Tell your doctor right away if you have symptoms such as high blood pressure, fast heartbeat, shortness of breath, or muscle pain. Before receiving Tepezza, tell your doctor if you have diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD, or are pregnant or planning to become pregnant. Tepezza may raise your blood sugar even if you do not have diabetes, and may worsen IBD such as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. I look more like my old self again. Now I wear sunglasses because I want to. Ask your doctor if Tepezza is right for you, and visit mytepezza.com to see Jeannie's before and after photos. I just switched to Verizon Business Unlimited. It is just right for my little business. We switched too. Unlimited premium data, unlimited hotspot data. My point of sale is on point.
Switch to Verizon Business Unlimited today from the network America relies on.
With Mucinex All-in-One, you've got unbeatable relief from your worst cold and flu symptoms. So when you need to show your cold who's boss, grab Mucinex All-in-One and get back to your rhythm. Feel the power.
Please.
For a married guy she just met millions of miles from home.
Whatever this is, it's your fault.
One wedding.
Let's talk game plan. Who's to lose?
I was about to say that.
But I said it, so it's my idea.
And lots of baggage.
Isn't he amazing?
Only if he drops her. Tickets to paradise. Rated PG-13.
Let's just cover it with brush. Anything otherwise gets attracted to.
The radiated area is about 100 yards straight ahead. You can just walk it.
This NFL season, the Sunday Sports returns. This is NFL Slime Time. Every week, host Nate Burleson and young Dylan huddle up with the stars.
Who's the better tight end? SpongeBob, Patrick, or Sandy?
Turn highlights into ticket to Halloween? Don't go anywhere. Food fulfilled.
First time.
Blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking.
Always somebody do the impressions. Do the hell and don't make us laugh. Girl, these folks will suck you dry. Ain't said nothing but a word. I'm sort of like a racehorse. Yes. It's just good to see somebody else making an ass of herself for a change. It is a gift.
With what he has.
Is that a viable defense?
I do not think it's a
I'm in Clovis County up by Antelope Lake.
He was concerned, he said, about getting help for the wounded.
In my mind was how are they going to find these individuals? How are they going to get there and help there? I mean, they're out in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road.
This northern stretch of the Sierra Nevada is an up and down road of river gorges and mountain peaks, difficult to ford, far from any towns or resorts. The few deputies on patrol are scattered over a vast wilderness, and so it's not altogether surprising that one of the first lawmen to respond to Chad's 911 call turned out to be a game warden. What is surprising is who was riding with him. A photographer of all people, one of the first to reach the scene of the shooting. And the images he captured,
It was bad. Worse than anything you would see in a movie, I'll tell you that.
coming up. The full real-life scene that first.
Well, he's got it. He knows what he's like. Let me go through this. Before you left the White House, please explain the process. From my understanding, what I've read, you have the GSA. They pack all the boxes. Okay. Would you pack any boxes?
No, they work together with people in the White House. I don't know how you would classify it, but GSA was involved. That's government services. They're fantastic people. And they packed them. And not only that, and they brought them in along with people in the White House. I don't know who they are, but there are a lot of people working in the White House. They packed them up, but not that clothing, massive amounts of pictures. You know, they take so many pictures every day, and they give you copies of all this stuff, and it's boxes and boxes of pictures, newspaper articles, tremendous, even kitchen things. You have tremendous amounts of gifted items, much clothing, and shirts and everything, sports gear. So all of this stuff. Now, just to show you, there are many pictures of this stuff standing on the sidewalk outside, not in the basement. Not in the basement. They're standing outside. I was going to say like Joe, but I decided not to because I want to be a very nice person. But this is Jim standing outside boxes, all these boxes, getting ready to be put by the GSA, I assume, into a truck and brought down to Palm Beach. There was nothing that was hiding. And if you look at the Presidential Records Act, this was what happens. You get together with GSA. Now, you have to understand, they bring it down. But NARA, and you talk, and you work, and you negotiate. I mean, they did it. It's not that old. I think in the 1970s, exactly for this. And we were having very nice discussions, no problem. And then all of a sudden, we got hit very hard by the FBI.
Let's backtrack a little. In January of this year, the National Archives Record Administration, I guess they had been negotiating or having talk. They came and got 15 boxes. My understanding is that they sent you a letter thanking you and your team for their cooperation.
They actually thanked us.
They thanked you. Okay. So at that point, what was your involvement in the process? Did you have
not much of an involvement other than we had boxes, and again, many of these boxes had other things from many newspapers, literally massive amounts of newspapers and pictures. But there were a lot of boxes for a lot of different things. But they actually wrote a letter thanking very much for your cooperation effectively. And we were doing that, which is exactly what we're supposed to do based on the Presidential Records Act. And Sean, we were doing that. And we continue to do it. And then we got hit by, it was really horrendous.
Because it was so voluminous, the number of papers.
Well, it was actually there were pictures of it. Pretty much, I think, many pictures of people. I think they were GSA, mostly people, some people in the White House, standing outside of the White House. Other people were coming up and taking pictures. If we wanted to do this, we'd do it through the basement, and we wouldn't let anybody take pictures. We had nothing to hide.
Never any friend deny any access from anyone at the National, from NARA, or from the DOJ or the FBI access. Because in June, there were, my understanding is, the DOJ, the FBI guys were here, and they saw remaining 10 boxes, which they ended up taking in grade. And a couple of days later, they asked you and your team to put a padlock on it. And that day, were they free to take those documents with them? Was there any disagreement about that?
They said access. I'm not sure they asked for access per se.
They were shown the
I
boxes.
thought we were having a very good conversation, even when they went downstairs, the attorneys went downstairs, showed them the room, showed them the boxes. I thought it was a very routine thing. And again, if you look at the law or the act or whatever, the Presidential Records Act, it basically said everything that we were doing, we should be doing. We can talk to them. Now, when they're here, we can do lots of things. I think we had good security. We had, as you know, we had tremendous Secret Service. They are unbelievable people. And they're all over Mar-a-Lago, as happens to a former president, et cetera, et cetera. I hate to use the word former because I have a lot of problems with what happened. But the fact is, and we wouldn't be having all these problems that we have right now, by the way, with Ukraine and Russia talking about nuclear weapons now, and all of that, because what's happening in the world is horrible. But we had good discussions as per the whole Records Act, Presidential Records Act. And then all of a sudden, we were surprised. I was very surprised. By the way, if we don't have good discussions, if we can't agree with that, there's like a process that you go through, and I think that the president predominates in the end. It's his choice in the end.
Let me stop here. I started this show with a monologue.
Yeah.
In that monologue, I pointed out Hillary Clinton, which is I guess the closest case in modern history that this mirrors your case, except hers were electronic. And you heard Jim Comey, I just played it, top secret classified information on her server, all these email chains. Then we have the deleted emails, the bleach bit of the other 33,000 emails, the hammers, the devices, the SIM cards, all those things that I mentioned.
Right.
So we have a similar case, and then you heard James Comey say, we don't prosecute or would ever prosecute. But they're threatening to prosecute you. What is the difference between what you're describing with they found apparently 101 classified documents in the boxes that they found. They found 11,000 pages that weren't classified.
But you don't know what they found. Because they wouldn't let any representative, they had our lawyers, it was 100 degrees out, they had our lawyers standing outside, not even allowing them into a building with that air conditioning. It's a big complex. And you had a lot of people here, I don't know how many, you had a lot of people. They wouldn't let anyone inside. And if you look at NARA, and if you look at the FBI over the last 10, 15 years, and if you look at all of the things at the Justice Department, what's taken place, when you look at what took place with the Russia hoax, Sean, they spied on my campaign. What could be worse? Could you imagine, take Obama, if he spied on his campaign? It would probably be death sentence. They spied on my campaign even when I was in the White House. And who would think that this is possible? But they spied. So, we're not dealing with a lot of trust here. And the public isn't either. The American public is really angry.
So then, this is a big part of what I want to get into, and that is, okay, I mentioned, for example, 33,000 deleted emails. We talked about Hunter Biden's laptop. We talked about in that laptop, Joe Biden is implicated many times by his own son. He didn't want to pay all of Dad's bills. He didn't want to pay for his repairs. The big guy gets his cut. Tony Bobolinsky confirmed the big guy is Joe Biden. He met with, we now know, about 14 of the foreign business partners, which means he lied during the campaign. You don't see anything happen there. For 3 years.
Nothing's going to happen there. I don't think.
So do we have equal justice?
And it's very The word prosecute, I don't think prosecute, I don't think this is prosecutable. Under the Presidential Records Act, there's no retribution or prosecution. You're supposed to negotiate, we're talking about documents. We're talking about documents that actually are being watched over to a certain extent, and I would say to a large extent by the Secret Service if you think about it. But I can't imagine the word, you mentioned the word prosecution. I don't hear the word prosecution.
No, I'm saying they didn't prosecute them.
No, but I don't see how they could prosecute me. How do you prosecute somebody if they didn't raid their homes? No, they certainly didn't raid their homes. They certainly didn't raid their homes. And when Hillary broke up all their phones with the hammers and they did the bleach paper, all the things that happened were incredible. But you could also say 43 million documents or pages with President Obama. That's very questionable. 33 million, not 33,000. Happens to be a similar number, 33 million. They're fighting over them, or arguing over them. The problem that you have is they go into rooms, they won't let anybody near them. They wouldn't even let them in the same building. Did they drop anything into those files? Or did they do it later? There's no chain of custody here with them.
Wouldn't that be on videotape potentially?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're in a room.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, because I think this is the next logical question. As the President of the United States, you, unlike, say, Hillary Clinton in her case, a president has the power to declassify.
Correct.
Okay. You have said on Truth Social a number of times, you did declassify. Okay. Is there a process? What was your process to
There
declassify?
doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. There's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. You're the President of the United States. You can declassify just by saying, I'm declassified, even by thinking about it. Because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. And there doesn't have to be a process. There can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. You're the President. You make that decision. So when you send it, it's declassified. I declassified everything. Now, I declassified things, and we have a lot of problems with NARA. You know, NARA is a radical left group of people running that thing, and when you send documents over there, I would say there's a very good chance a lot of those documents will never be seen again. There's also a lot of speculation because of what they did, the severity of the FBI coming in, raiding Mar-a-Lago. Were they looking for the Hillary Clinton emails that were deleted, but they are around someplace? Were they looking for the spies? No, they may be saying, they may have thought that it was in there. And a lot of people said the only thing that would give the kind of severity that they showed by actually coming in and raiding with many, many people is the Hillary Clinton deal, the Russia stuff, or I mean, there are a number of things. The spying on Trump's campaign. So they spied on my campaign. So why did they come in and do that? Especially since we were having such great conversations.
All right, so let me go. You mentioned Russia a number of times. Let's talk about that. Andrew McCabe, Deputy FBI Director, famously said, without Hillary's bought and paid for dossier. Now remember, she used her money and DNC money. She funneled it to a law firm. Law firm hires Fusion GPS, an op research firm. This is in 2016. They then hire Christopher Steele, former MI6. Christopher Steele's main source is a guy by the name of Dan Shanko. He's now on trial for lying to the FBI. We know, and we've been able to confirm and reported, widely believed, first of all, the media, you all got it wrong on the Russia issue. My show got it right.
Pulitzer Prizes should be returned.
I'll take it.
They are 100% wrong. They got it wrong.
They got it wrong. And this is important. This dragged this country through hell for 3 years. And I am with us ensemble cast. I think you were watching some of the coverage. So my next question is, if in fact they couldn't get the FISA warrant, according to Andrew McCabe, without Hillary's dossier, they ruined Carter Page's life. And then, because there was a connection to you that was a backdoor to your campaign, your transition team, and your presidency. Here's my question. Dan Shanko was the source for Christopher Steele. He told the FBI in January of 2017 that in fact it was all total BS, bar talk, not true, none of it. And a few months later, he's on the FBI's payroll. And yet, they used his words as the source to spy on you as a president and candidate.
He was on the payroll, and another very high up in the FBI was working with the Mueller campaign. Think of this, with the Mueller witch hunt, another one of the witch hunts. At least, I tell you what, we've shown the people of this country there is such corruption, whether it be elections, whether it be open borders, whether it be the kind of things we're talking about right now. The corruption is unbelievable. They have a high man in the FBI, and I think they just walked him out the building a couple of weeks ago, right, when they found him. That they were paying. He was in charge of, think of this, he was in charge of, for Mueller, for the Mueller group of 18 radical left Democrat haters who said no collusion. There was no collusion after 2 years. But he was in charge. He worked for the FBI. They walked him out of the building. They walked him out. They got rid of him. But how is that really good? So when somebody says, like, you're not very trusting of the FBI, there have to be changes made, Chuck. Because our country is sick. Our country has so many problems right now. Our country is sick. We